Welcome, everyone. If you haven't met me already, my name is Kelly. I own Dogkind. I specialize in very fearful, feral, shutdown dogs, helping those really sensitive pups build confidence and build trust with you. And today we're going to talk about dogs who won't eat consistently in your presence, whether it be treats or their regular food. And then how do we use food for training then if you can't get your dog to eat when you're around? Anxious dog won't eat in your presence, troubleshooting low food motivation. Who is this for? This is for you if you have an extremely fearful, feral, or shut down dog. Your dog won't eat when you're nearby reliably or sometimes at all. And you're not really sure then how to use food to help train your dog and build their confidence. Stay till the end. I have a link to my free webinars I'm doing next week where you can register. So, okay, what to do if you have a dog who will not eat reliably, especially when you're nearby. It's really helpful to remember that food isn't just a reward. Usually we think of it as something we'll use to reinforce behaviors, to reward behaviors, but eating itself is a behavior, and that means that we can train our dogs to do it. We can train our dogs to perform behaviors we want more often, which is lucky for us. And with the kind of dogs I work with and the kind of dogs that many of you have, learning to just eat in a variety of contexts is a really important foundation skill for these sensitive dogs. Okay, so how are we going to train eating? Of course, there can be a lot more to this than what I can present in just a few minutes in this video, but I'm going to give you an overview and a couple examples. You want to start with identifying your starting point, and you do this anytime you want to train a new behavior or increase the frequency of a behavior your dog's already doing. So first, ask yourself, okay, where does my dog eat now reliably? All your dogs are eating at some point, unless they're starving to death or they're sick. So where do they eat most reliably right now? And some details that are frequently important for these really shut down dogs include location, time of day, where are you while eating is happening, and what are you doing? There's a big difference between sitting quietly or like moving around, even if you're not in the same room as your dog. What food do they eat most consistently? And from what like surface, bowl, food toy, etc. And for an example, here's little Pancake back in the day when he wouldn't eat when I was around, fleeing to his crate when I tried to take a photo. And Pancake would eat high-value food like cheese on the floor or from a blanket right in front of his crate. So you see the crate where he's going into in the photo on the right there. He would eat it if I wasn't in the room and when I wasn't making noise in an adjacent room. So that was a starting point for him. Once you know what your starting point is, instead of immediately thinking about how can I introduce more of me, of my presence into the picture, you'll probably have more success if you first just add more easy eating opportunities to generalize the behavior a little bit. And an easy way to do this is to increase the number of eating stations that you provide. I'll show you a photo to kind of demonstrate this. But basically, if you are feeding your dog, say, in a bowl near their safe space or in their safe space, maybe you could divide that meal into a couple bowls to start, just so that there are two different locations, even if they're right next to each other. And they should be quite close together to start. So keep them close to the current eating location. Oh, I also underlined here one at a time to remind myself to mention that not all of your dogs will need this, but if you have a really sensitive dog, too much change in their environment, even if it seems really innocuous to you, might scare them, and then they might not eat at all. So the first time you add an additional eating location or station, just do one and see how that goes first. Leave the current eating station or location untouched. So whatever is working right now, don't change that. Keep that where it is. And then again, you can split up your dog's meal into multiple installments so that you can feed in multiple locations, but only do this if it won't result in your dog not eating enough overall. You do need to make sure they're getting enough calories. So here's a little sort of made up example. This photo is of a safe space of one of my student dogs, Confidence Builders Club dogs. That's the dog's safe space. You see there's a crate there and a bed and outdoor access. I'm just using this as a background because it was a clear photo. But let's pretend that that white bowl I have with the paw prints on it is where the dog reliably eats. You put the bowl there, they eat. If we're going to start adding more easy eating opportunities, I might add a second bowl that is very similar to whatever they're currently eating out of. Or, you can try some other things, but you might have the most success if it's similar to what they're already eating out of. Pretty close to the first bowl, so maybe just a couple inches away. And if they eat out of both of those bowls reliably, maybe I might add a third bowl, then maybe a fourth bowl. And over time, if this is all going well and your dog is getting lots of practice eating out of slightly different, in slightly different locations, you can start to, add more feeding stations and have them spaced out a little more. And then you're also getting behavior of moving around. A lot of these shutdown dogs really don't want to move much out of where they feel safe. And so this is just a way to, you get kind of some quote unquote free movement training in addition to the eating. Once you have your dog eating in sort of multiple locations, at least in their safe space, so you've generalized that eating behavior a bit and they have been practicing and they're getting more repetitions because you're breaking up their meal into multiple locations, then you can think about adding a little bit of your presence. And this is really important for, getting to the point where you can work on training in closer proximity to your dog. So again, you're going to start with, figure out your starting point. Where do you currently need to be for your dog to eat and doing what? And then add to that scenario in tiny increments very carefully. So for example, this is very individualized, but for Pancake, he would originally eat if I was out of the room in the kitchen, which I could see into his room from the kitchen, but if I was sitting quietly at the table there working on my laptop, he would then kind of creep out of his crate and start to look for treats. If I was not on my laptop, if I was watching him, he would not eat. He would not come out of his crate. And say, okay, I want to add to that. What are some ways I could add to that? I could push my chair just a little bit, like 6 inches closer to the door to that room, but still just sit there working on my laptop. Or maybe I'll keep my chair where it is, but change the angle just a little so I am slightly more closer to sort of facing the room instead of being sideways to it. And then you can imagine how you would kind of slowly maneuver your way into, either increasing your proximity or how directly you're facing the dog, or possibly, sort of looking toward them instead of just staring at your laptop. So this can take some time, but it's worth it. And some dogs do progress through this pretty quickly. Now, I wanted to show you another example that I have some video for, adding a tiny bit of your presence for a dog. And I know that some of you have a dog like this, where they'll eat as soon as you leave the room, or like pretty soon after you leave the room. And okay, well, how am I going to make progress starting from there? If you stay in the room, the dog won't eat at all. They always wait till I leave. So one approach that can be helpful is, one, you can just walk slightly more slowly out of the room. If your dog's really eating, like as soon as you go out the door, sometimes if you just walk a little more slowly, they get bored of waiting for you, or I don't know what. But anyway, they might, jump the gun a little bit and start to eat while you're still in the room. So you get a little bit of overlap of you in the room and them eating. Another thing you can do is, if you've already introduced these multiple eating stations, or I often call them treat targets in our classes, you can kind of load those as you leave the room. And then sometimes you will get the dog, because you're not facing them, you're moving away from them, which is usually easier. You're putting down food. They may start to creep out of their safe space and start eating without waiting for all of that to get done. And sometimes this does take a while. But let's look at some video of Sky, who is one of our Confidence Builders dogs, and just with 3 sort of video clips showing the progression of this kind of training. So here, this is actually outside of Sky's safe space. We had to do some work to get to that point. But this is a challenge because it was new kind of treat target, these like clear, I'm not sure if they're plastic, but these discs that you can see on the floor, new treat targets and outside the safe space. So 2 challenging aspects. And in this first clip here, you'll see Sky coming to eat off of them after mom has left the area. So this is mom is gone. Sky is now eating off of the treat targets. And then a little later, same treat targets, you're going to see mom setting them up. And then, and she's moving relatively quickly, which can be helpful because you're getting distance faster from the dog. Some dogs do better if you move more slowly, though. You'll have to experiment. And now she's starting, you see Sky's starting to get those treats when sooner after mom's put the food down. And then this is another treat target example, but now you'll see you've got Sky eating in closer proximity to mom and just more comfort as well with mom moving around because mom's always, not coming toward her really. She's moving away from her. She's putting food down. Here she's moving a little more slowly. And so you're getting several behaviors here that are helpful. Not just the eating, but also starting to move together, which you need eventually if you're going to go on walks. For a lot of these dogs, this is well down the line. Going on a walk is, not in the immediate future, but you can start building some of the behaviors you need for a walk much earlier. Okay, so if you have a dog who will not eat reliably in your presence, they're really scared and shut down, remember that eating is behavior. It's something you can train, and it is a worthy behavior. You don't have to ask for more from a fearful dog. Eating is great. Focus on eating as a worthwhile behavior to train on its own, and start to provide a variety of easy eating opportunities for your fearful dog. And what's easy will depend on your dog, but a lot of times it means they don't have to move very far from their safe space or from like where they are already comfortably eating. This is one of the most common mistakes, is to ask for too much, to put a second, you say, okay, I added another bowl, but it's 2 or 3 feet away, which to us doesn't seem that far. But for a dog who is afraid of crossing an open space or getting too far from their safe space, that may well be too much. Okay, you are the first to get this link. Next week, I am teaching some webinars on building confidence and trust with these really fearful and shut down dogs. Go to this link, dogkindtraining.com/webinar. You can register there and you'll have a choice of 3 different times to pick from. And I will hopefully see you there and we'll have time for Q&A.